Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Well, mostly just Josh, because the rest of us already celebrated.
It's November.
I know, and I'm not even really celebrating it. I feel awful. I'm kind of a bad American, I guess.
Are you going to have any turkey today?
No turkey. I don't even eat meat, so I'm
Tofurkey.
Josh is having the porg. That's what.
Yes, the porg will be the thing that brings me back to the meat eating. That'll be for sure.
The porgacopia.
That's so depressing. Hey, everyone, I'm James Rosile. This is
Brock.
And joined now with
Andrew Fantasia. What's up, everybody?
We're joined with Josh Lucas from the Den of Nerds, Andrew Fantasia from right here, and Rob McDonald from right here. And the reason we're all here is because we are only 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or a month or some short amount of time away from this little film called The Last Jedi.
Never heard of it.
The Last Jedi.
I was going to say something else, but I couldn't think of a movie.
It is the sequel to The Force Awakens. And we're all here for the Last Jedi Roundtable. This is the first time we've done a roundtable. We kind of did one last year after Rogue One with Andrew and Rob. This time we've decided to invite Josh over to talk about it because I know he does not like Star Wars.
I tell you what, I like Star Wars much more than I like the Justice League, but we'll save that for a later.
Actually, well, you don't know if you know the newest Star Wars as much as the Justice League because you haven't seen it yet.
That's true. That's fair.
So
very
today,
fair point.
All we're doing is talking about The Last Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, let's get right into it because this is going to be very, very, very long. And speaking of long, Andrew's very excited about this. The length of the movie. This is the longest Star Wars, the longest Star Wars film in the history of Star Wars film. Move over, Revenge of the Sith. You're no longer number one. Now it is The Last Jedi, which also has the least amount of wipes in it.
Damn, I was just gonna say that.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. We got to rehearse. The least amount of wipes, but the most. We're gonna start. Brock, talk to me. Are you comfortable with 2.5 hours?
Initial response, I have no problem. I will watch 4 hours of this movie. I actually have the conversation with my cousin about this, who isn't as avid a Star Wars fan as me, but he respects the trilogy. So he's like, no, like make it. He even said like The Force Awakens, like if there was more, you should have made it 3 hours. I have no problem with that. I think Star Wars has that whatever respect that it can go as long as it wants. Though I find it a big topic of how long movies are. I mean, it's not gonna it's not gonna beat out Blade Runner for longest movie of the year. And Blade Runner is an excellent film for most people, I would think. It's just kind of artsy, but 2 hours and 45 minutes is a long time to be. I mean, it's crazy to think now that you spend pretty much 5 hours at the movie theater, depending on how you do your movies. But I'm all for it because I love Star Wars, but like. It's crazy, but it's also the norm. I mean, most Marvel movies are 2 hours, so.
Yeah, I'm right on that one with you. For me, and Andrew's gonna call me out on this being a liar, but for Star Wars, I will sit in that theater for as long as you want me to sit there. However, when it came to buying the tickets, there was that option to watch The Force Awakens before The Last Jedi. And I'm like, well, that's like 6 hours in the theater now. 5 hours.
The school day.
That is. I said no. Rob can speak more to that. He's done those marathons before. But I think that's too much. I'm fine with 2.5 hours. And you know what? I equate this to Lord of the Rings. When Lord of the Rings came out, every Christmas we're like, Lord of the Rings is coming. Let's go spend 3.5 hours in the theater. And that's your big epic. We don't have those big epics anymore. Star Wars, you've said this a few times, Brock. Star Wars is the new big epic. I am totally okay with 2.5 hours for The Last Jedi. My question for viewers that aren't the 5 of us here, the people that just randomly go to the theater, are they going to want to sit there for 2.5 hours to watch Star Wars? That's where I am on this one. I can't go, but Andrew, I know you hate long movies. Why don't you tell us your thoughts?
Yeah, I am so pissed. Are you crazy? 2.5 hours? 2.5 hours is almost too short right now. Actually, the reigning champion is Attack of the Clones. It beat out Revenge of the Sith by 1 minute because of that sexy Coliseum scene kept on going.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. There we go. 2.5 is a gorgeous amount of time. I was so happy with this. You brought up Blade Runner. after I left the theater watching the new Blade Runner, I was like, I could have sat there for another hour because I loved the hell out of that movie. And I'm pretty confident that I'm going to love the hell out of Last Jedi even more. So give me 3.5 hours, man. Like you said, we don't have those epics. Like Middle Earth is done for now, Amazon. Middle Earth is done. So we don't have those epic movies anymore. We don't have those Ben-Hurs, those Cleopatras. Those aren't a thing anymore. Star Wars has absolutely spent 40 years earning the right to be those epics. I say, give me another 3 hours and I'll sit there happily.
Well, Blade Runner bombed. Josh, your thoughts?
Dude, Blade Runner did bomb, which is such a shame. By the way,
I haven't seen it, but it is a shame because it looked really good, and I love Denis Villeneuve.
It's a fantastic film. It'll blow your face off. But anyways, as far as the runtime for The Last Jedi, well, I think that, look, it's the part 2, right? So in the 3-act structure, the part 2 of your story is the longest part of the story. So I think that it's deserved. It makes sense that The Last Jedi is going to be this long. You guys hit the nail on the head. Star Wars has earned this. I remember when JJ said something like the first cut that he had of The Force Awakens was close. Didn't he say 3.5 hours? And he said he almost showed it to the studio because he thought it worked, which I think is very interesting. You see, there's a narrative thing that happens with flow of a movie, and a movie can actually be longer and feel shorter because of the way it's edited together. Like a classic example for me is Batman v Superman. The extended cut of that film feels like a shorter movie, because the narrative is driven so well. So I think that Last Jedi, look, I don't think there's going to be a problem with it. It's going to feel like when we're done with it, we're just going to want more. Like I'm going to sprint out of the theater and get in line to go see it again. Like I can't wait to see it and see it again and again and again. The only problem is the inevitable pee break that I will have to take when I'm sucking down my large Coke. So maybe I can hold it. Probably not, but never tell me the odds. Maybe.
Rob, you have sat through marathon after marathon of every Marvel movie you can think of. 2.5 hours?
2.5 hours is just fine with me. A lot of times I just feel like directors should almost have final cuts for their movies. A lot of times where it's just like, give the director everything he needs to be able to tell the story that he wants to do. Because a lot of times if he cuts out stuff, then it'll be like, it'll feel disjointed, like how Josh just mentioned. Like when Andrew brought up Blade Runner, it was like I couldn't feel like they could cut. I don't think they could have cut out like 15 minutes or anything in that movie. It just felt like it needed everything that was in that movie and for it to build the way it did, which is amazing. So yeah, the only director I feel like should be taking away final cut privileges or director's cut privileges is Michael Bay, because those Transformers movies do not need to be 2.5 hours. If they're an hour and a half,
they don't actually need
we'd
to
all
exist.
like them better. Yeah. So give Rian Johnson all the time he needs to craft the best story possible.
I'll love it if none of us like The Last Jedi. I don't want to hear our thoughts after that one right now. I don't think there's a possibility.
This movie should have been an hour and a half.
This movie should have been over by the crawl. Let's move on to so everyone knows I like Battlefront. I was playing Battlefront. I finished the campaign mode for Battlefront. It only took me a long time on easy, but I did it. But the one thing that stood out to me at the end was spoiler alert, Brock. I'm sorry. No. Anyway, in Battlefront, you see Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. We know that he's there, and when he came on the screen, I was like, "Oh, cool! I like Kylo Ren," and I realized I really like Kylo Ren. I think he's an awesome character. And there's something about it. It might just be the marketing. From what I don't know, because he was everywhere. But I really, really love Kylo Ren. And this film, The Last Jedi, hints or flat out says that Kylo Ren failed Luke. Does this in any way, Josh, mean? Sorry, I'm going to go to Rob. Rob, does this hint at his turn to the light?
Hint. I'd say almost if we're talking about hinting towards his return to light, I feel like that was more in Force Awakens, because I feel like still a big part of that movie was the fact that even though he was a part of the dark side and he had several scenes that he was trying to embrace the dark side, but it seemed like the natural thing that was trying to pull him towards him was the light, because it was constantly like he just needed to push it away himself because it was just naturally coming to him in some type of way. So him killing Han. Like the fact that he had that that's conversation with the burned helmet of Darth Vader in Force Awakens, when he was just like, I feel the pull, and he just needed to shut it out. Like, I'm paraphrasing, of course, that line. Josh, I'll have to rewatch that line and get it exactly right when I face
You
the
done,
Duel of
son.
Fates. And I just feel like in that in that scene, it was like that was what really was showing that. But yeah, there was those lines in Battlefront that was hinting at the fact that the light side is kind of enveloping him or taking him a little bit. Like, he's not all evil, possibly even after killing Han Solo. Again, we haven't seen The Last Jedi yet, but we'll see how much pull to light there will be in The Last Jedi.
Andrew, is Kylo on a straightforward reverse Anakin Skywalker path?
Well, see, when you say reverse Anakin Skywalker, what I picture, because everybody, the consensus has been that a lot of people want to see Kylo move towards the light. That's a very possible, reasonable thing to happen. But if we're going reverse Anakin Skywalker, and if you really want to throw the audience for a loop, what would be cool is Anakin started off light, he went dark, and then he ended his life in the light. What if Kylo moves into the light, casts aside the dark side, and then in 9 becomes even worse? Again, he goes back. He does the full circle of Anakin, just in the other order. I think I would like that, because that would throw us for a loop. It would be different, and it would raise a lot of interesting questions about him and about the way people interact with him.
I think we should go after this is done, trace what you did with your finger in the air and see what you wrote out. And there's probably a secret.
He drew the
like
wills.
Kylo
He drew the
is
wills.
Dead, boobs or something like that.
It's the imprints from Arrival. Brock, what do you think?
Is Kylo good? Sure.
Yay!
I was thinking about this because I know we're always talking about, like, will Rey go evil or will Kylo go? I think of those two, Kylo's the most likely to flip if necessary. I think it would work because his character seems kind of back and forth in the first one. I think Rey going evil would be, like, very disappointing for the average viewer. I wouldn't care if they were to flip sides midway. Great. But because we knew he started as a Jedi and then became whatever he is now, because we don't know if he's Sith or not, he's easily could switch sides. Because obviously we look at him, he's like, oh, he's Vader. So it's easy to say, yeah, he could go. But I would say, let's just keep him evil. Or I don't know. It's a full Brock situation, because you're just like, there's not enough information of what is actually going to happen. If we go by the trailer, he wants to blow things up. So I don't think he's going to go to the good side anytime soon.
Well, who doesn't want to blow things up, Josh?
Well, yes, let's blow all this things up. Let's blow this podcast up right now by talking about what bullcrap it is that Kylo Ren will go back to the light. We're actually going to be covering this on the Last Jedi live streams. Shameless plug, brought to you by the Den of Nerds.
The Den of Nerds.
On Friday. Yeah. So James and I will be going over. By the way, all of you are invited. If you've got time Friday morning and you want to hang out
Brock
over
has
on the Den of
loads of
Nerds.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Brock,
stop
I've heard
my
you
job
barely
midway.
work. Yeah. I've heard you barely work and just are avoiding content because you don't like James.
No, I don't like James at all. Can't you tell?
Right.
Most people don't.
Right.
We're sharing earbuds like it's like the school bus.
Oh, that's adorbs. But yeah, look, the whole thing is it's set up. What I don't like in films is contrivances, right? And setting up straw men just to knock them down is the lamest thing in the world. So like the idea that Kylo's turn is somehow just created for his redemption to take place absolutely sucks. I hate that idea. However, we don't know a lot about Snoke, and going in to The Last Jedi, if we discover what I think we will discover about Snoke, I think we as an audience will view Kylo's turn to the dark side and his redemption a little bit differently. We're going to kind of be like almost like a Stockholm syndrome sort of thing going on with Kylo. I really believe that he is manipulated beyond the point of temptation by Snoke, and that he is where he is and is doing what he is doing because of this incredible, almost unfathomable power that is Snoke. You know what's funny is I think about the fact that the calling that Palpatine was hearing out in the unknown regions, that Vader did not feel that at all. And I'm starting to think, is there something to that with the Skywalker line? You know what I mean? Like, what exactly is going on with the Skywalkers, or the possible redemptive qualities of this bloodline, and what that has to do with Snoke specifically, and why did that stop with Kylo? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of questions that are unanswered. I do think that it's kind of contrived. I'm willing to let it go because, look, it's Star Wars, it's poetry, it circles, back. When I heard Kylo say in The Force Awakens that he feels the call to the light, it blew my mind. As a Star Wars fan, I was like, we've never experienced that before. We've never experienced a character on the dark being called back to the light. It's such a cool idea. It's such a cool concept. I'm willing to sort of let go some of my feelings about it if it's handled correctly, and if Snoke ends up being the thing that I think he's going to be, it'll change my feelings about Kylo's descent.
Rian Johnson also talked about how it would be mindless just to kill Kylo off. Like, he's such an intriguing character. Why would you just build him up just to off him? And he brought that up. And I feel the same way about going to the light side in a lot of respects. I do see an arc for him. Whether Andrew might be right, I like that idea. But there's something more to Kylo. And just like you said, Josh, there's something that we have not witnessed in the Star Wars universe with him yet. He gets pulled to the light, much like Luke was pulled to the... Everyone gets pulled to the dark. Anakin gets pulled to the dark. We see the dark side reaching him. But now it's the light side reaching him. What does that mean? And there was a new TV spot that dropped that I think you did a little video on, Josh. I'm not sure if you were able to upload it or not. I watched it.
Yeah.
It took a little bit of time. But something is calling to Rey. And you theorize that it is Snoke calling to Rey. What connection do you think Snoke has with Rey, if any?
Well, I think he recognizes her as almost like I would say like a vergence or an emerging in the Force. So like when he feels that awakening, right? When he says to Kylo in The Force Awakens, there has been an awakening. Have you felt it? I mean, the whole film is called The Force Awakens. This idea is kind of big, right? It's kind of a big idea that the Force has awakened and sort of like manifested itself in this seemingly random girl, right? And so if you follow some of the fan theories about how Kylo knows about her with the lightsaber and a possible shared vision that they have had, like Rey is just this thing that these characters have sort of been aware of. I believe that Snoke's connection to Rey is just as simple as that she is a newly awakened sort of like what I would call a child of the Force. And I don't mean virgin birth. I just mean that like the Force has decided to sort of funnel itself through her, for I guess a lack of a better explanation. And I believe that she is a conduit for the greater power that the Force holds. And I think that that's going to parallel against Luke Skywalker, who I personally believe has sort of like shut off his Force powers. Like when we meet him at the beginning of The Last Jedi, I feel as though he's not really connected to the Force by choice. And it could have something to do with Snoke being this thing that is now like inevitably there. Like whenever you reach out to the Force, he's going to be there. Whenever you tap into the Force, he's going to be there. He's corrupted it. And there's really some bad things going on with the Force. And I think that Rey is just simply all the power with none of the control. Luke Skywalker's power comes from the fact that his soul is untouchable. He can't be corrupted. He can't be. And that is probably bullcrap if you're Snoke. You're like, well, this sucks. Like, I don't want to go play with that guy. You know what I mean? And so Rey is an example of a wellspring of raw power, right? But something more that he's talking about. I think that it's just this, she's this thing in the Force right now, and he wants that power. I think he wants to absorb it.
Rob?
Yeah, I feel like again mentioning Rey's power is a really key thing about this, and the fact that in Force Awakens she seemed like a prodigy, right? That it was like everything she tried, she knew. It's like the Force or her abilities, just she knew how to do it, and she was just instantly good at everything she does. Whether you want to call that a Mary Sue or whether you want to call that something that we'll explain later, I prefer to think the latter. That we will get an explanation about all this, and again, even in the marketing for Last Jedi, it's emphasizing her power, because when Luke has those training moments where he's training her, it's like that's all you can see. I've only seen this power once before. It doesn't scare me now. It didn't scare me before. It scares me now. Like all that, just it's her power. I feel like that's the thing that's really like attracting Snoke. Like again, we don't know. I'm curious. I'd be very curious to see if if Snoke knows about her and maybe felt her power or knew about her power. If Luke, what degree of knowledge does Luke have about her power pre training, or just coming in on the first scene that he sees her? Is he gonna know anything about her power? Or will he have felt anything about her power? Because I feel like if Snoke knows about her and could have felt her power from through the galaxy, I'm almost wondering if Palpatine was still alive, would he have felt it? If Yoda was still alive, would he have felt it? Would he have felt the power? Would he have felt the energy of her and just the power of her? Again, we haven't seen like her big time power in Force Awakens yet, but we will see it in Last Jedi. So I feel like again, it's the power of Rey. It's like the prodigy nature of her. That's the thing that's really calling out to Snoke.
Brock, why is Snoke calling out to Rey?
Why?
Yeah.
He wants a pizza.
I
don't have me too. Why is he calling? I don't know, because I was thinking about this when I read all the stuff you wrote down. I feel like, I don't know if anyone said this because I kind of zoned out there for 10 minutes. No, I think if he's searching for her, in my mind, it's something new because now she has power. Even though you could probably find hints where it's like, oh, I knew she was coming or whatever, or like I've been waiting for this. In my mind, it's sort of like, oh, a new Jedi. Excellent. I need this in my collection of people to do things with, like Kylo. Sort of like the collector from Guardians of the Galaxy. He's like,
he has had many apprentices. Exactly. He did say that. He's like, I've had many apprentices before. He says that in the novel. Right.
So that's how I see it. But I base that almost on nothing. I feel bad by almost not having a viewpoint, but it's just like he's the bad guy. He just wants things. So, but
Andy Serkis said he was driven by pain and greed. I think just today or yesterday that he came out and said that.
That's an interesting juxtaposition of things. You know what I mean? Like, I want power, or no, that's not really. Pain is sort of like, that's humanistic, and so is greed, but greed seems more villainous. You know what I mean? Like, I've been hurt, so it should be more like anger and greed. But like, that's interesting where that could possibly go. I don't know. I really can't decide how I feel about Snoke, even though I just said he's the villain. Like, I don't know what his plans are. But yeah, in my head, when I was going through this rundown, I was like, you know what? My thought is that all of a sudden she seems to have more power, or is, I don't know. She is more attractive to Snoke now than Kylo is. So that's what I think she is. So
yeah, I find it. Andrew, maybe you can talk about this a little bit, but when we read those Aftermath books and we hear this dark side that Josh talked about earlier, calling out, and Vader didn't hear it and whatnot, and when I read those books, my first instinct was Snoke. That's Snoke calling from somewhere, and now we're getting this thing with Rey. There's the light, the dark, and something else calling to Rey, and we don't know what that is. Right now, I want to pretend that maybe is what was calling out before. There's something weird going on out there. But Andrew, is Snoke calling out to Rey, and what the hell does he want with her?
I think it would be, if I had to theorize, I'd say it's one of two things. Either it's what Rob and I talked about in our last vote of no confidence, where Snoke has plagued his powers and made her, and the body that we see, that guy in the gold robe, is just some random person, just some shell, and who we know as Snoke is an ethereal being who had possessed that body a long time ago and now needs a new one, and he made a new one, and now he needs her so he can possess her. It's either that, or preferably, from my standpoint, he knows that she is in fact Rey Natasha Palpatine, and he needs that bloodline for whatever devices he has brewing. And that's the team I'm swinging for right now, is that one. But it could
fulfill your
so
destiny.
many manners of things. Exactly, fulfill that destiny, man. Your grandfather was a bang-up guy. He did some great things. Have an espresso, sit down. I'll tell you all about it, and one day you can take up his mantle. But
Make it Adobio.
There's so many things that it could go for. They could be going the route of the HBO show Carnival, where there's always an avatar of light and an avatar of dark, and they have to fight because it's preordained, and maybe that's who they are. There's a billion different possibilities in terms of this question, but like I said, I'm going for either he's possessing shells and he has a nice foxy new one right there, he just needs her delivered to him, or he needs to tell her about dear old grandpa.
The one thing that backs up what you guys talked about this morning on Vote of No Confidence with what you just said about Snoke is that EB Games exclusive, which you got your hands on, Andrew, that EB Games exclusive on their items list is listed as Victor. It's called Victor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still curious why they would choose the name Victor. That's something that we'll never get an answer to that. I can't believe they just were like, we'll call him Victor. No one needs to. Why can't they just say Snoke in the throne room? It was coming regardless.
He does kind of look like Bill Nighy's character Victor in Underworld, maybe. I don't know.
Victor Snoke is kind of a dope name, though. Victor
Yeah, it
Snoke.
is. I think I
know,
said
right?
that months ago.
Yeah.
Victor Snoke.
Wait, what? Okay, very quickly. This is on the rundown. Josh, over under Victor Snoke being his full name. Yes or no?
No, but go no fucking way. But sorry, but there is the possibility that the body that he is using is Victor. That would be kind of interesting, but I would say no with the Victor Snoke.
All right, that's okay. Now that we have tempered expectations on Victor being his first name, let's talk about the overall expectations of The Last Jedi. This movie's coming out in a couple weeks. We all just said that 2.5 hours is not long enough for us to watch this movie.
Right.
And I said last week on the Rebel Scum podcast that we need to go in and forget all of these theories. Just leave them at the front door and go in. And Andrew, when she's not a Palpatine, do not hate the movie if she's not a Palpatine. Like that kind of way. But Andrew, are our expectations too high for this movie? Not just us, but do you think overall are they too high? I mean, Rian Johnson just got a new trilogy, and he tweeted out, "Now I really hope you like The Last Jedi."
Was that Disney or Ryan that tweeted that, by the way?
It was Rian Johnson tweeted that.
Okay. Yeah,
He says,
yeah.
"I hope you like The Last Jedi, but now I really hope you like The Last Jedi."
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm trying to temper mine, especially when it comes with Star Wars. I really want to make sure I don't go in carrying all this baggage with me and then walk away unfulfilled because none of my baggage matched theirs. So I try to step away as much as I watch stuff and theorize and stuff. If Rey is not, in fact, a Palpatine, I'm not going to be like, oh, this is bullshit, I'm leaving right now. I'm ready to get whatever they give me. I want to make sure that I'm as blank a slate as possible when I put my bum in that chair.
Josh, you're doing live Facebook videos every single week leading up to The Last Jedi. Expectations too high, yes or no?
Expectations are way too high. No, expectations are not too high, and here's why. The fandom is sort of in a weird place, actually. Like, a lot of people have taken the rose-colored glasses off. Now, when they look at The Force Awakens, there's actually almost like a venom to it now, where people really dislike that film. That movie's great, by the way. And here's the thing. I don't think your expectations can be higher, or maybe higher is not the right word, but you're wanting to be higher for the movie to be good than it was the first time. When Force Awakens, when you went into there, everybody was pretty much saying the same thing. We're pretty much even right now. We're pretty much split with 3 great films, 3 not so great films. I know everyone here mostly likes the prequels, but the larger audiences out there did not. all everyone wanted was the scale to tilt to the side of good. We just needed The Force Awakens to be good, and I think that we all breathed a sigh of relief when that happened. But now, especially with the divisive nature of Rogue One, because there are a lot of people that have problems with Rogue One, you know, there's a lot of ancillary stuff going on with, you know, Kathy Kennedy and Lucasfilm and all these things. I don't think expectations are too high. I feel that people might be overly harsh of the film, but I don't think that expectations are going to be high. For me personally, like, even though my expectations are like at a near atomic level, I am actually expecting to walk out disagreeing with some things, having mixed feelings about what they do. I don't want them to write and create the fan fiction Josh Lucas version of Star Wars. I want them to tell their story. And so I'm actually excited to see what that is. And even if in some ways I'm let down, I feel confident that like it'll be for the good of Star Wars. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of my answer.
Definitely. You want something that I think would propel the story forward. Rob, expectations way too... We're sharing a headset here. Rob, expectations way too high?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like 6 months ago, in terms of the expectations for this movie, I mean, everybody was expecting a good movie. They wanted a good movie. They were all expecting that. I mean, aside from that, I feel like what expectations people a lot of times had was just in regards to the theories about, you know, who is Snoke, who are Rey's parents. Like, those are the ones that expectations could not meet by, because some people expect the answer to be this, and if it's not that, then that'll degrade the movie for them in some way, which is weird, and it won't degrade it for me because I'm open to whatever answers they're looking to give me. I just hope that they're good ones. I hope that they're satisfying ones. If I have choices in what I want each answer to be, but if it's not that, I'm more than open to seeing what the other options are. But the funny thing is that I feel like with this news that Rian Johnson is directing a new trilogy, that's the stuff that I feel like that might mess with some people's expectations, because automatically some people might just be thinking that, like, oh my God, they're giving him a new trilogy. They're giving him the ball and letting him run with it, and they might automatically think that because of that they're going to expect a really good movie now out of Last Jedi. Like, they might be expecting Empire Strikes Back, and if they get any less, then that's going to hurt their enjoyment of the movie. That's not, again, going to be the case with me, but I've seen that like in some comment sections and just seen people just writing that type of stuff. It's like, oh, this movie must be amazing now. And now that they're thinking that could mess with their expectations if it's anything less than that. So that's where I think it's kind of maybe a little bit changed since this announcement of Rian Johnson directing this new Star Wars trilogy.
Brock, we all know that your expectations are not very well. Not that they're not high, but you're not going to go in, oh, Rey has to be this, and Snoke has to be that, and Luke is his real hand grew back. Like, you seem, out of everybody, the most open to whatever. But do you think for the general public that expectations for this film, they're projecting it now at over $200 million opening for that weekend, which, surprise, surprise, I guess. Yeah. But do you think the expectations are going to be too high?
I think we live in a world now where we just get amazing movies that it has to outdo it. And it's not just movies, it's TV as well. I mean, look at what Game of Thrones has done. Like, that show is awesome on so many levels, visually and story-wise. I'm sure there's people that don't like Game of Thrones. But, you know, these things set a precedent where, like, you know, a Marvel film is always good to an extent, but then at a point there is going to be, well, I didn't like this one as much as the other one, or it's like, I've seen this. So I feel like we always have to outdo. I don't know if that's a new thing, but it feels like such a prevalent thing these days where it's like, I mean, they say our generation has the attention span of like, you know, 10 seconds, maybe less, like 3 seconds. So it's like, if you don't give us something good, we'll just be like, bah, you know, like it's also weird when someone tells me that you make $95 million on a weekend and it's a flop. Like, that's insane.
It's a failure.
It's a failure. I get it. I get why it's something like Justice League is a failure, but like, and not to compare that, but like, it's so weird. It's like, so that being said, yeah, I'm optimistic because I love Star Wars. There's certain things I'm like, that was okay. But I can't see not enjoying this film because up until 6 years ago, we never thought we'd get anything else. So we kind of have to live now. Remember that, where it's like you could have had nothing. So
and you know what? If you don't like these, you can also pretend that they don't exist. Because I've got a box set with 6 films over there, and if I want to pretend that the new ones don't exist, there's a box set right there that I could just take any time. But to the Justice League point of $96 million, it's funny. I was thinking back to when Harry Potter 1 came out. I remember when I was watching Craig Kilborn, for all you old people, if you remember Craig Kilborn. And I remember, though, and he was like, he did this thing. He was in his shtick behind the desk. He goes, oh, this just in. Harry Potter made another $1 million because it made $90 million opening weekend. And everybody was like, oh, my God, the biggest movie of all time.
Yeah.
90 million. Now 95 is a failure, a colossal failure. Also, the cost of movies making and whatnot. It's the whole thing. I feel like going into this movie, I think I'm going to like it. I think all 5 of us are going to like it. We will have our problems. The one thing that I see, though, coming out of this, and Rian Johnson, I feel like he's getting us prepared for it, is when he says this is going to alter the Star Wars universe forever. I really feel like the fan base, the audience, is going to be divided in a lot of ways on this one.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not. I don't think it's going to be as fun as The Force Awakens. I think it's still going to be a lot of fun, but even when you watch the trailer doesn't give you the sense of, oh, this is going to be a romp through the countryside. It's like there's going to be talking in this movie, and then there's going to be like cool fights and stuff like that.
Is that a profound statement though for Rian Johnson? Like, I love the magical carpet ride he's selling these days, and I'm not getting off anytime soon. But like, he's like, this is going to change Star Wars forever. I'm like, well, yeah, you're giving us a new story, a whole new angle of looking at things. Of course, it's going to change. It's not. But that being said,
he's talking
that's
about
great
the
to
Jedi.
know. Yeah,
he's talking about the Jedi, and he wrote a movie called The Last Jedi. So I think what he's referring to is he's going to change our perception of that order. And I think what he really means is like, a lot of us already know this. Like, a lot of the hardcore fans, they already know this. They've watched the Mortis episodes. They've watched all these episodes of Clone Wars. They're starting to piece it together that, like, okay, maybe Yoda's Jedi weren't that awesome. Maybe they were screwing up. But I think that to, like, grandmas and people that aren't super into it, the idea that the Jedi, this thing in pop culture that represents nothing but goodness and wholesome and self-sacrifice and all, to even have a hint of that being a corrupted order or built on the basis of something dark, I think is going to change Star Wars. So I don't think he's using hyperbole. I just think maybe to us it will be hyperbole because we kind of already know.
Yeah.
What a way to course correct the prequels and like, because I really think that in the prequels the Jedi aren't all good. When you go in there blindly like we did, we think, oh, Jedi are great. So when you watch those movies, you can easily convince yourself that the Jedi are all doing something great. But really, they're on one end. Like it's the dark side and the light side are they're not. They're kind of like Republicans and Democrats. Someone needs to be in the middle. Kylo Ren, great Jedi. All right, let's move on.
And the Bendu.
Carrie Fisher passed away almost 1 year ago, which changed the course of this trilogy. It got Colin Trevorrow fired, presumably. And look, they need to figure out how to end Princess General Leia in these films. And they're not going to obviously have Carrie Fisher there to do it, much like they had Harrison Ford, and possibly, if they decide to do something with Luke Skywalker, they have Mark Hamill. But they did not have Carrie Fisher for episode 9, and now this is going to be her last film. I don't think she's going to make an appearance in episode 9. They've already ex-nayed the CG, and if they're not going to do CG, I just don't see them recasting, but that's a vote of no confidence for another day, Rob.
Yep.
But Brock, what do you think we're going to see in Leia's final moments? Do you think they altered the film at all for those final moments, and will you shed a tear?
Oh, for sure. I actually saw an Instagram image yesterday. It's a picture of Carrie Fisher sort of as the Virgin Mary, but wearing like a crown and holding her French Terrier or whatever, Gary Fisher, and she's giving us the middle finger. But it's really nice done. I was like, ooh, that's nice. It's classy. So like, it's hard to. You wish this wasn't the case, but you gotta move on, right? Hopefully they give her the best final curtain, I guess, in this movie that you can get. I have some thoughts on it that I think we're gonna do for the actual podcast, so I almost don't want to say them, but I think now, because the situation they're in, like, they're out with Princess Leia is that perhaps she is just done fighting after losing Han, even though their relationship wasn't exactly strong. But it kind of hit me today. As I was reading something for the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, like what is the outcome of Han being slain by Kylo Ren for Leia? Even though they weren't together, it was sort of like, it's something we can't comprehend because it's like, oh, you can't have a long distance relationship. But we're talking about a galaxy where you can be from one end to the other in parsecs, right? So it's like, well, I'm on Tatooine. I will see you in 10 minutes because I am going to go through hyperspace. So I think that perhaps that they could fall out. It would seem bizarre, I think, but I think they can do it right. But I think for sure there's going to be something with Kylo and her that's sort of, I don't want to use the word obvious, but I think there's going to be we've seen what happened between him and Han, so what's going to happen between him and Leia? Because now he has to, not to jump to Kylo, but he has to prove himself, so why not just take out the biggest rebel leader you can find, right? So I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Andrew?
This is a big question mark for me. This is a big point of contention. I know that I'm going to be in the minority here, but I believe that if it was up to me, I would do a recasting of the character. And here's why. Hear me out. I think that at this juncture, because we've been told by Lucasfilm already that Leia was supposed to be prominent in 9, even more so than she's going to be in 8, that was the original plan. This means that if Leia does not show up in 9 at all, what we're getting from 9 is going to be Plan B, whatever their Plan B script was. And that means there's a very, very, very good chance, it's not 100%, but there's a very good chance that this Plan B script won't be as good as their Plan A script. And there's a very good chance we're getting their second best Episode 9 because of this. So I think that if you recast, you can keep the Plan A. Obviously, people are going to be upset because you're recasting a sacred character, and I get that. To me personally, I would rather see them move forward with what they had in mind, just with another actress in the role. And like I can see, I know this has been said by millions of other people before too. I can see Meryl Streep playing this role because not only is she a fantastic actress, Meryl Streep is also a fantastic impersonator, which means she can not only give us Leia, she can give us Carrie Fisher as Leia. That's how good she is. So I'm of the mind that I would rather see that. I would rather see Meryl Streep as Carrie Fisher as Leia in their Plan A than see no Leia at all in their Plan B.
I would rather not have an Episode 9 than have Meryl Streep play Princess Leia. That is the honest to goodness truth, and I mean it. Rob,
That's amazing.
do you think she's gonna get a send off in 8 in some way, or are they gonna save it for 9?
Well, just to start off again, this is a perfect plug, especially the way Andrew just mentioned it. It is a vote no confidence topic coming out soon, where it's going to be should Leia be recast. So that's going to be an exciting topic that you guys can check out soon. And as for Episode 8 and Episode 9, let's just assume the fact that all of Carrie Fisher's remaining scenes that she has shot are going to be in Last Jedi. And if that's the case, whatever her final moment is, whatever her final moment on screen is, whether it is, her dying at whatever hands, her character passing away, or whether it's just something that was just supposed to be a setup for Episode 9, I feel like whatever's going to happen in this movie is that they're going to edit it in a certain way that's going to be tasteful as a send-off to Carrie Fisher. I feel like they're going to re-edit in some type of way, even if it's something as simple as just good luck out there or something like that. And just, I feel like whatever the final scene we're going to get with Carrie Fisher is going to feel like a send-off to her in some way, whatever it is. Again, it's tough to say. It's going to rely on the editing and in terms of, the score and all that type of stuff in terms of helping write her, at least Carrie Fisher, off in a very tasteful and very poignant way. Because whether they are going to recast for episode 9 or whether they're just going to acknowledge her off screen in some type of way in episode 9, I'm saying that whatever Carrie Fisher's last moment within The Last Jedi will be, it will be re-edited and will feel like a nice and proper ending for her character.
Josh, what do you think her final moments will be, and how much will you cry when they cast Meryl Streep?
I'm not a huge Meryl Streep fan. She's an incredible actress. I don't know if I want to see her as Leia. But I was saying, you know what's funny? Is like, okay, so obviously, much love for the princess. She is gone. That is awful. But, you know, mourn and miss those that reunite with the Force do not. You know what I mean? Death is a natural part of life, you know? So I don't... One of the things I think is weird is we're all hung up on Carrie Fisher's death as being contextual to the story. The truth is, Princess Leia messed up. Princess Leia was arguably not a good parent to Kylo Ren. She had no idea how to deal with him. She honestly doesn't, in my opinion, have any idea how to do anything other than go be a leader and be a military mind. You know, her and Han have that moment in The Force Awakens where Han says, I retreated back to the only thing I was ever good at. And she says, I did too. Well, I'll tell you what they weren't good at, being parents. Because what happened with Ben Solo is almost directly their fault, at least in some capacity. And so I think that, especially when you take into account the mythological aspects of Star Wars, there are a lot of mythologies out there in which the child kills the parents, or the child cleaves from the parents, and the parents represent this thing that must die for the man or woman to come forward. You basically allow this childlike part of you to die and then forge your own path and destiny. And so I think what's interesting is the reason Kylo has to cut down his parents probably has a little bit to do with the fact that he harbors a lot of ill will towards them, but he has to let the past die, right? He has to let his old self die and kill it. And I tell you, we all don't think that he's going to kill Carrie, but I almost feel like just like Han maybe even helped his son to kill him, I almost feel like it would be sort of weirdly poetic for her to reach out to the Force during that scene and instead of try to stop him, tell him that it's okay. Tell him, like, it's okay, you can kill me. You know what I mean? And I know that won't sit right with a lot of people, but I honestly believe that her dying in this film makes the most sense. It makes the most sense for them to end her path here, especially because, you know, going back to the Carrie Fisher thing, from what we know, Ryan was able to get an incredible performance out of Carrie Fisher. I am not a fan of her performance in The Force Awakens at all. I thought she was absolutely awful in that movie. And there's reports that she had a lot of trouble on set and it was really bad for her and rough. And we hear that conversely, what she gave Ryan in The Last Jedi is impeccable, maybe some of the best stuff of her career. And so why wouldn't you allow that to be the swan song? And I think there are ways to do it. I think that we don't want Kylo to kill her, obviously, but it might be the most poetic way to have it done. So I'm actually a fan of that going down. First of all, it would surprise the hell out of everybody. They'd be like, what? And make his redemption near impossible, which is good because I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and, you know, the one thing we're all forgetting here is, you know, there's Carrie Fisher said, you know, episode 7 is Harrison Ford's, episode 8 is Mark Hamill's, and 9's going to be mine. The thing is, what if that is a flat-out misdirect
I think
lie?
That's a flat-out lie. I think I was actually going to go there, but I didn't want to go there. But, dude, I think that everybody at Lucasfilm and Ryan was going to kill Carrie in this movie. Think about it. We hear all this stuff about them being like, okay, well, we have to make changes to 9. Why wasn't there reshoots on Last Jedi? You know what I'm saying? Like, wouldn't you want to change things knowing that she passed unless she's already dead in the movie and they already filmed it? You know what I mean?
And they say, though, that Mark, she was like, this is Mark Hamill's movie. Then Mark Hamill comes out and says, well, these aren't my movies anymore. These are for the kids now. So is he in the movie a lot or is he not in the movie? Like, whose movie is it? If it's his, he should be in most of it, no?
Right. I agree.
Well, good. I'm glad
I hope you're right. I hope that's the case where it's a bluff. Because then that's great, because that means what we're getting in 9 isn't Plan B. It means, you know, they've just been hiding their cards. They've been playing it as they go. And they want to keep us surprised. And, you know, they've been very mum on what they're doing with her in 9. So if that's the case, I hope that's right. I hope that it's just a matter of, don't worry, it's already taken care of.
Or maybe secretly about a year ago, they've already cast Meryl Streep as Leia in 9, and they're just waiting until Last Jedi is out before they announce it.
I'm cutting Rob off of his skip call. It's all over. Okay, so we all know that Carrie Fisher obviously can no longer appear in these movies, but one person that is still around that can appear in these movies is Billy D. Williams. But Lando was just confirmed by Rian Johnson will not be appearing in The Last Jedi. Where is the last smuggler, scoundrel? Seriously, I would like to see him. Josh, why the hell is Lando missing? And where is he?
You know, I just think that if you're in Ryan's shoes, right, and part of the reason that we'll come out of this and praise this movie, and the reason that there wasn't friction between him and Disney, and like, look, I'm just going to keep talking about this until people kind of like understand what I'm saying. Like, the dude just made the movie the right way. He sat in a room and wrote the frickin' thing, developed it, reverse engineered plot points, developed it, had such a solid script that then when they went to shoot, it was more or less the easy part of production. And what he said was, when he sat down to write The Last Jedi, he wrote out all of the characters from The Force Awakens and that would be in The Last Jedi, and then sort of plotted out their strengths, weaknesses, what do they struggle with, and basically interwove this emotional sort of tapestry of awesome character moments that lead towards sort of, you know, a predictable but inevitable end in the movie. I just don't think Lando was on that page, nor really should he be. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. We love Lando. We want to know where he's at. Maybe it'd be cool if there was mention of him, you know what I mean? But like, for what The Last Jedi has to accomplish, Lando's not important.
What?
All right, fair enough, Lando. If you don't think so, Andrew, I know you're a huge Lando and Colt 45 guy. Where is Lando?
I think he's on the planet Cortosanicus, which is the brothel planet, and he's just living it up there for the rest of his days.
Sounds right.
But if he's not there, plan B would be, I think Josh hit the nail on the head there. You tell a good story, and if he's, you know, a factor in the story, great. But if he's not, great. As long as the story is great, then we're great. And I think that that's the case here, that Lando just didn't need to show up in this. I feel like if they had tried to force him, we would have had a Chewbacca in Revenge of the Sith scenario. Like I can just picture like The Force Awakens, if it was written by George Lucas circa 2005. I can picture like Balatik, and he's like, tell the First Order Han Solo has escaped in the Millennium Falcon. And then he would turn his head and be like, right, Lando? And the Lando would just be like, and that would be it. Shoehorn. So I'm glad we're not getting something like that. You were right. I think, James, you brought up like the funeral way back in the day, like Han's funeral. That would be a good place to put him. But if we're not getting a funeral, then I understand completely. And we are getting Lando, a lot of Lando very soon in like 6 months. So we've got some Lando goodness coming. It's just on its way. And there's always episode 9.
True.
Yeah, well, maybe he could be the leader of the Resistance now that Leia's gone. Rob?
Yeah.
Where the hell is Lando?
I unfortunately probably think it's similar to that, where it's just like he wasn't in Force Awakens, and then maybe he'd just be shoehorned otherwards as fan service otherwise. But I'd like to secretly think that it's because they're preparing a Lando and Shriv sitcom right now. That's what they're doing, and they'll have Lobot in there too, and it's gonna be a good time on the Disney app when they finally drop that thing. So that's what I'd like to see. But like I said, we're gonna get Lando in 6 months or so. So that's the cool part. But you know, hopefully episode 9 they'll find a good way to incorporate him that way, because it would be nice to see him in this new trilogy and where Lando is in this time frame.
Brock, you disappointed we're not going to see Lando in The Last Jedi?
Yeah, no, it just seems odd because it's sort of, they just like occasionally drop mention of him every once in a while. I mean, I don't think it was ever assumed he was going to be in Force Awakens, but there was always mention of him. It's like, oh, Billy D. Williams. Here he is at the premiere. Da 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 da. I feel we recently heard about him because he was counseling Donald Glover on how to best be Lando, a young Lando, for Han Solo. So I don't know what to say about it, quite honestly. Do we need him? Yeah, it'd be great, but I almost question if his relevance in the movies, and this is really going to be unpopular of a statement, but he's more of a plot device than a character. He's fun, but like he gets you places. And you put people on Endor, if you put all your main cast on, well, not if you put most of your cast on Endor and you have to blow up the Death Star, then you need someone else. I mean, look, they put him with Nien Yum, who becomes important because he's there. Like, it's sort of like Lando is important because he blew up the second Death Star, but it's like, yeah, but like anybody could have been that Millennium Falcon. I mean, they got to be a good pilot, but anyways, I want him to be in it, but
well, plus they demilitarized, right? So the rebellion, which became the New Republic, they demilitarized. So there was no need for like generals anymore. So like if he was a general just at the same time when Han was, I mean, the party's over. Look, the decree is that we're no longer generals. So they probably just went their own ways.
He's like he's a businessman, right? So he takes advantage. We see it in Rebels. Obviously, we see it in Empire Strikes Back with him being in charge of Bespin. I feel like he's a used car salesman. He's always looking for that better deal. I wonder though if they'll rethink whether to put him in if Donald Glover just slays it as Lando to the point that like after Han Solo, people are like, I want to know more about Lando Calrissian, or maybe like Han Solo series or whatever is enough to explain. Like, but to put it easy, like maybe it's just he's old and doesn't want to be in film. I know he probably enjoys being.
Oh, he would kill it. Oh, he would kill for that chance,
like,
dude.
Yeah, he's old too. So
yeah,
but they go out of their way to put Akbar and things like that. Like what? Like just
and he's like 200 years old.
But I mean, like you go out of your way to have a character like that in it. Why can't you why can't Lando be in that spot?
Yeah,
it was just
he should be in Canto Bight. He should have something to do with Canto Bight. That would be kind of cool.
I mean, this could also be another misdirect where maybe he does show up and they're like. But I think this was tempered your expectation. Like there will be no Lando. Do not go in this expecting to see Lando. One thing Brock's really hoping to see is Rey turn to the dark side, as he said earlier. But do you think there's a possibility that Rey and Kylo Ren could rebuild the Sith Empire and the rule of two?
Oh, wow. Sure. But so then you would end episode 9 on like they're the villains and maybe they didn't win, but they slunk off into the outer rim.
Well, you never know if it's going to end it.
I mean, man, what a ending.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'd love that shit. You know what I mean? Like, if they just went off, oh, man.
I think we need a new status quo, so we got to go. And we got to get away from the idea of, like, we're just recreating the original trilogy. Do I want it? I want to know what the new enemy is. Not, I know technically First Order, but like, what is the new dark side? Is it basically exactly the Sith, just called something new, or what are they representing? So, to not do my usual full Brock answer, I'm for it. I think switching positions or staying on the one side, like Kylo being victorious. But my problem is like who is there to prevail if we I mean, I guess we could do it in Last Jedi and then solve it in episode 9, but I feel like if she's going to fall from grace, there has to be 2 films, if that makes sense. Because you spent this whole first movie, it's like she's your plucky new hero and you're going to follow her, just like Luke. Like, Luke gets challenged, but, like, he inevitably prevails. And I think Star Wars is going to try to do new things, but I don't think they're going to mess with the, like, oh, no, good doesn't win this one. Or, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to end where it's like, and we didn't win. I'm like, ooh, Okay, I can't see it happening.
That makes sense. Josh, you said you loved it, but do you see it happening?
No, I don't see it happening. A version of it could happen, though.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the version that Disney could do is like Kylo and Rey fall in love, which, by the way, that's happening. That's going to happen.
Hashtag Reylo.
Hashtag Reylo. It's 100% happening. If you don't think it's happening, you're insane.
So we have a bet on this. Can we bet porg? Can we bet
let's bet
pork.
Yes, let's bet that pork plushie. So that's happening, and I can see a situation where essentially because of their love for each other, they're not willing to embrace the Jedi code, and like maybe Kylo is not willing to. They want to go discover the Force together. There's actually a really interesting interview from 2014, I believe, where Daisy Ridley is asked about this, and she basically just flat out says that they're not related. And once again, this is from that time period where like she wasn't as tight-lipped as she should have been. So those interviews are fascinating. Go watch them. She gives so much away. But she's talking about how these two characters going on a journey together to discover the secrets of the Force together is so much more intriguing than them being cousins or going to the light or the dark. And so I think what you might see is them sort of starting anew. But that sort of rejects the idea of the Sith, too. The Sith are a pretty well-established thing. They have a doctrine, they have beliefs and all this. And I think that they might be looking for that great mystery, the answer to the great mystery that Palpatine was looking for, that a lot of people are looking for, arguably what Luke Skywalker has been looking for, which I know we're going to get to in a second here. But I can see a scenario where they leave together to go discover more secrets about the Force, but I do not think they will start the Sith.
Okay.
Interesting. Rob, you are, your alter ego is Darth Ward. You're a Dark Lord of the Sith. Do you want to see these two resurrect the Sith?
Resurrect the Sith? I think it'd be interesting. Like, really, I think with those two is like obviously one of the big misdirects that they keep going with, and they seem to be ending almost every trailer and TV spot with, is that hand of Kylo's going out and reaching for Rey and asking for her to join him, I should say. But I really feel like if they're going to pair up and, either go to the dark side or go together to light, I feel like that's just going to be a small part of it. Like I believe that in the end they will not be together. If one of them goes to the dark, I don't believe at the end of episode 9, I don't believe the other one's going to be. I believe it's still going to end up being that they're on the two opposite sides by the end of episode 9. I believe that that's the clash that we are still leading towards, or one of the big ones that we're leading towards. Whether it's going to end the film or whether it's going to be one of them going up against Snoke is a question, but I do believe that conflict is going to come against each other more than them pairing up to do something. They may pair up for small things here and there throughout episode 8 and perhaps episode 9, but I do believe that is the ultimate clash. So whatever they are, I think it's more as rivals and more against each other than they are as partners.
There's definitely a connection between Rey and Kylo Ren. I don't know what that is. I think Reylo on some level is happening. I don't know if they're going to be making out in front of us on the TV screen or not. No, I watch movies on TV screens, by the way.
What?
For the first time, yeah. I'm going to...
Retro.
That's how I do things. I don't know if they're going to be doing that or not, but there's something to the Reylo theory going out there. I know everyone shipped them, and there's some weird pictures that I've seen on the internet. People have way too much time on their hand when they make something.
Yeah, they do.
The
and
sun,
it's amazing.
Apparently, you guys can't see this. The sun is just blinding us right now. But there's something to Reylo, and I do not think that they're going to become two new Sith Lords. I think that'd be totally cool, and it would bring everything in a brand new direction. And Ryan Johnson said this is going to take Star Wars in places we've never known. Andrew, do you think that Reylo will be the two Sith? One, always two there are?
Well, here's the thing. One of my favorite tropes ever is when you take two characters who are enemies, and at the moment, as far as we know, Rey and Kylo are enemies. One of my favorite tropes is when you take two characters like that and you force them together, and they're in a situation where they need to put aside whatever BS is in between them and conquer something. We saw it with Zeb and Callus and Rebels. In my opinion, one of the greatest parts of the whole Rocky franchise is when Rocky goes to Apollo and he's like, "Hey, can you train me to fight?" I love enemies sort of, tweaking their relationship. So I really dig the idea of seeing Rey and Kylo stuck in a situation where maybe Luke has cast her aside, Snoke has cast him aside, and they're like, well, now what? We got to get out of this volcano. Let's work together. In regards to them being Sith Lords, this is where I think it gets really interesting and where we can have a lot of fun. As far as Rian Johnson is making it look, at the end of this movie, or possibly at the end of this trilogy, what we've known to be the Jedi, if the Jedi still exist by the end of episode 9, they're going to be a very different animal from what we've known. So who's to say that that Kylo and Rey won't become Sith, but the Sith are going to be very different animals from what we have known. And by the end of 9, being a Sith is a totally different ballgame. And imagine if 9 ends with a victory for the good guys, but it's a bittersweet one because Rey and Kylo take over the galaxy as whatever this new Sith is. That is so exciting to me because in 6 years after, when Disney's like, okay, 10, 11, and 12 are coming out and it takes place like 10 years later, what does the galaxy look like at that point?
Right.
What happened in those 10 years? All of a sudden, we are really getting more and more of this whole, these questions for a whole new trilogy. So I think that would be an absolutely phantasmagorical way to go.
Is it a cop-out, though, like maybe not in Last Jedi, but the end of this trilogy, that both Kylo and Rey sacrifice themselves to bring some kind of new order? Like, say, Last Jedi explains what needs to change, and that by the end of episode 9, they sacrifice themselves in some thing of glory, like they go into some huge beam of light and disappear, and then somehow order is restored, and then our new trilogy is like the new refounding of force wielders to an extent. Maybe 10 years in the future, where like people understand that the force is a thing. Is that a cop-out? Because in a sense, it's just like, okay, we're going to erase everything and start new. Could you accept that kind of ending to all three movies?
I mean, I could, definitely.
All right, we wrote it down. That's the ending. And good night, folks.
I mean, I'd love that, right? I mean, like having their child, if they had a child, imagine if they had a child and what that child would go through. You're talking 10 years into the future. Why not make it 16? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do the same thing again, have this offspring. Yeah, and what if one of them dies? It could be either Rey. The only way I see Rey going dark is if they fall in love and Kylo is killed by someone on the light. Right. You know what I mean? Or something similar to that. So there's a lot of things they could do, a lot of Shakespearean stuff, a lot of Greek mythology stuff. But plainly, I would absolutely love to see that scenario played out, where in the future we see what happens and possibly their child.
Okay, cool. That sounds good.
Yeah, if you're going to take Star Wars in a new direction, then having the rebuilding of the Sith instead of the Jedi seems like a cool way to go. And then Kathleen Kennedy said that she had only her. That Lucasfilm had stories for Rey, Finn, and Poe for years and years to come.
Yep.
And what if that's it? And what if Finn knew Rey on some level, obviously throughout The Force Awakens. He had an attachment to her, and if she turns Sith or to the dark side or in some weird new Sith that we don't know yet, he's going to feel something towards that and maybe take it upon himself to figure out, to try to get an answer for it. And so, movies going on forever and ever and ever. One answer that we need to be solved, and he's not on Pilio, which is my new favorite planet for all of you that played.
Oh, that was so awesome.
Right?
That
Those
part
giant
was so
bugs.
fun.
Oh, Josh, wait till you finish the campaign and the bug actually grows into Snoke. It is amazing.
Nice.
But the thing is, what led Luke to exile? What has he learned while being in exile? And what has changed within him? Josh?
So I think, it's so awesome the way they've been painting this story for us in like the ancillary material, because even in Vader Down, before he meets Vader in Empire, he's looking for Jedi temples. He's trying to understand. I feel like he's always been sort of that curious soul and sort of wanting to figure it out for himself. And so that journey just naturally took him on a path where he was sort of trying to understand a greater understanding, right? Like, it's so much bigger than that from the trailer, right? He's like really trying to get at it. Like, what is the Force? And I believe that what happened was he sort of had this new idea for what the new Jedi would be, what it would be like. And then, you know, Snoke and Kylo destroy that. And he feels responsible. And I think it's beyond the fact that, like, he could have prevented it. I believe that he feels responsible because something that he uncovered, something that he learned about the Jedi, is possibly part of the reason why Kylo was able to fall so easily. And so I think that there's this thing in a lot of messianic religions and what we call the mystery religions, which Joseph Campbell actually talks a lot about. But basically there are these, in the mystery religions, they would tell stories that at the lower levels were thought of as true. So these are parables, but essentially people really thought that Samson existed or really thought there was David and Goliath. But at the upper levels of the wisdom religions, you understand that they're just stories. We're not real people, but the wisdom within the stories is so true that however you need to get people to believe it is the way you go about it. And there could be things like that within the Jedi Code, that like these stories are just not true. And as you learn, you sort of understand that, and you're like, yeah, but it's important to still tell people that the light and dark are separate, right? It's really important that we tell that to people, because that is, when you're just coming into this world, that is your framework. And maybe he told Kylo this way before Kylo was ready for that knowledge. Like, what does that mean? And it allowed him to become disillusioned with the code and therefore fall to the dark side. So I think that there's something like that going on. And what's really changed him is he's defeated. He's self-defeated. I think he's super strong. People are saying like, oh, Luke's lost his mojo. Nah, not at all. When you read that Luke Skywalker book, the dude, he is very strong with the Force. The Force is strong in my family, you know? But he is self-defeated. He no longer has self-confidence. And just look at what happened with Tiger Woods, the greatest golfer ever. And then mentally he broke down, and he was never able to be the same, not even a shadow of what he once was. That's all in the mind. That's all self-doubt. You know what I mean? So I think that that's kind of what happened to Luke.
Rob, your thoughts on Luke's exile?
Yeah, this level of like knowledge, I do believe that it is something that Luke learned, that is a part of his reason for exile. But I do think that one of the number one reasons why he went into exile is just this idea of the Jedi failing, the fact that more or less he's failed for the first time. Obviously, he was a part of the rebellion. They defeated the Empire. He defeated the Emperor. Now he's finally training somebody, and he fails. He fails in his task, and now this person has gone to the dark side, and he's failed. And that's kind of like similar to, like, obviously in a different way, but Yoda. Like, one of the reasons he went into exile into Dagobah, and why Obi-Wan had to go into exile to Tatooine, was because Yoda failed to exterminate the Emperor. That was his reason for going over there. He was going to go to Coruscant so he can defeat the Emperor. If he had defeated the Emperor, who knows where the Empire would have been after that? They might have gone into a big like power struggle in terms of who's going to be the new Emperor, who's going to run the Empire. Like, it would have changed everything, because the fact that if the Emperor was suddenly off the table as the ultimate head of the Empire, that would have changed everything. And the fact that Yoda probably would not have gone to Dagobah. He probably would have been continuing to fight or in some type of way and tried to form whatever rebellion earlier than it did. And I believe that is similar to Luke, because he experienced his failure in terms of the training, and his failure and his knowledge perhaps of the Jedi Order or maybe even the Sith has changed him spiritually. And that's what we're going to see, I believe, in Last Jedi, and probably in books further on, because as soon as the Last Jedi starts filling in gaps and reasons as to what Luke experienced and what Luke is like, it's suddenly going to open the door for all the books and all that type of stuff to come out and give us more information, give us the complete story of Luke Skywalker, what happened to him over the course of those 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens.
Josh, you mentioned before about the stories, how they're not actually true, but it's the lessons that you learn in the stories are what's important. If people need to believe that, that's what they believe. Andrew, you have read the Luke Skywalker book. There will be you will be doing a high ground on that in a couple of weeks for us on the channel. But in that book, not all the stories you read in there are factual. In fact, there is one about his compass that we find out through Battlefront 2 that is completely bogus. Andrew, what are your thoughts? Why did Luke go into exile? Have you learned anything from that book about his exile? Do you think he can come out of exile and turn to the dark side and become Vader like his father before him?
Of course they froze.
A high ground, but did I learn anything about his exile from that book? No, I did not. But as far as what I can gather from the info we've been given, those 30 years in that interim was basically Indiana Jones and the Temples of the Wills. Luke was hopping from planet to planet, finding these ancient sites and excavating and exploring. And when you dig in the past, you're going to find some crap that you don't want to hear, especially when it has to do with religion or folklore or all these things that the Jedi kind of built their foundations around. So when Luke is rifling through some old Jedi papers in some temple on God knows where, and he pulls out a library card that belongs to like Darth such and such, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute, Darth, what's this? What's all this stuff I'm digging up? And then, slowly but surely he gets this picture in his mind of what it was really like, and that might have given him the incentive to think, you know what, this is wrong. It's time for the Jedi to end. And that coupled with losing Kylo, and by the way, EA, you want a good canon video game? Hello, Luke Skywalker going to these temples. But regardless, he's got this couple with Kylo Ren, his nephew going to the dark side, coupled with this whole discovery of, man, the Jedi are not what I think they were. And who knows, when Indiana Jones took that idol off the pedestal, it caused some bad stuff to happen. A rock came and almost killed him. Maybe Luke took some stuff and caused some bad stuff to happen. Maybe by taking artifacts, he opened the path for Snoke to come in, because Snoke seems like he's old school and he'd be connected to this shit. We don't know. So everything kind of comes to a point where it's like, I'm guilty about Kylo. I might be guilty about touching some things I shouldn't have. And on top of it all, I read some things I didn't want to hear about my religion, and now I don't know what's real anymore. Screw it. I'm going to this Porg Island. I'm just going to talk with these nuns. They seem to have everything figured out. They look like they're having an idyllic time here, and I'm just going to wash my hands of everything.
I got to point out for a second, Andrew, the more you're talking about Snoke and these things about, the idol going away and that bringing Snoke in, or Snoke looking for somebody else's body, the more I'm getting a vision of Apocalypse from X-Men Apocalypse. That's who Snoke is.
Snoke is Apocalypse. We solved it.
Snoke is Poe. Brock.
I mean, Snoke is Poe.
I don't know. When I first read the question, where it was like 3 questions, I was like, I don't know, and I don't know. I am into the idea of him searching for artifacts, which is logical, because what's the first thing he's going to do? I mean, he doesn't have a master, and, you could say he becomes a master by the end of Return of the Jedi, but he really hasn't learned everything that there is to learn. Especially after what happens in Return of the Jedi, he's like, oh, wow, you can come really close to falling to the dark side. But at the same, even if he fully understands his power, it's a logical human thing that we want to know where we came from. So he got a little taste of it. So he's like, well, now I've vanquished evil, so now I can focus on doing what I need to do. So he'll go out and find those things. He easily, like, there's always been mention of he returns to Obi-Wan's hut on Tatooine. I could see him going back to Dagobah and looking around, trying to understand who Yoda better was. So to find artifacts, which makes sense because there's mention of he went off to look for something. That's a really easy way of like, yes, that would be the logical next step for Luke Skywalker. And it fits with what we know so much from the trailer, where it's like you don't want to know what I know anymore. So, I'm all for that. Has he changed? It seems like it, but I can't tell if it's for the good or bad. You know what I mean?
Well, it's for good because we're getting more movies because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
True.
that's where I go with it. I have no idea why he's left. I know that there is a lot of talk about a compass. Like I said, Andrew, you've read about it in the Luke Skywalker book. We've played it now in Battlefront. I believe he has it in a Funko Pop. We heard rumors about it before. There's something about that is leading him somewhere. But why he chose Acto is something we're going to find out. Definitely, because for right now we know that there are caretakers which look like nuns, which is like, or alien fishy nuns, which is a strange thing to have on a random island. Porgs you could understand, but these caretakers are there for a reason, to preserve the whatever's there.
Yeah, didn't he say something like they were there, the Jedi came there and sort of like instructed them on how to keep the temple or something like that?
Something like that. The other thing though is when you, again with Battlefront 2 though, is it pushes forward more the Church of the Force. The Church of the Force is a thing. That's going to play a factor into everything. I think that the Church of the Force is bigger than we thought when we first started doing this podcast a year ago. They never really call it the Church of the Force. It's just there. There's something. Lor San Tekka, his role is a little bit more expanded now. You understand a little bit more there and whatnot. So, look, I'm going to tweet Ryan Johnson. I'm asking why the hell Luke Skywalker went into exile. Maybe he'll give me an answer. We don't know. He answers me all the time.
I think the answer is The Last Jedi.
Oh, snap. I can't. By the way, The Last Jedi is called The Last Jedi because Rey and Kylo become Sith, and Luke is actually the last Jedi. Then he dies, and there are no more Jedi anymore.
Ew.
Couple more things, and then we'll wrap this one up. The Ice Foxes from the trailer and from the sizzle reel got a name this week, and that name is the Vulptex.
Yep.
So I want to know from you guys, are we going to love Vulptex or Porgs? Which will we love the most?
And when do they evolve into Ninetales? That's a Pokemon joke. Yay.
I don't know what that means, but I'm thinking that
I was waiting the whole episode for that.
I might actually enjoy the Ice Foxes more than Porgs by the end of this. Josh, you?
Well, first of all, James, they are crystal foxes. They are not made of ice. Yeah, no, they seem awesome. I mean, they seem really cool. They caught the eye right away. People did those, the animatronics. They had that little video of it. I was like, this is fascinating. You know what I mean? So it seems really cool. I will probably like them more than the Porgs, although the Porgs have really grown on me. They're sort of like this stupid cult thing that now everyone does memes with and different things like that. Like the Jaws one is amazing with the Porg popping out instead of the shark.
On our channel, it's selling very well. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is like amazing stuff. So I like that as well. But one of these crystal foxes needs to eat a Porg, and then we'll see.
Well, the crystal foxes live on Crate, and they eat red kyber crystal. I made that up. Rob, I know which one you're going to say. Vulptex or Porg?
Definitely the Vulptex. Much like Josh, I'm kind of like getting sweeter on the Porgs a little bit with the memes, and those are kind of funny, but like I just fear as to what they're going to do with the Porgs. So that's the fear is kind of pushing me towards the Vulptex right now. And the Vulptex look like they're going to be kind of cool, kind of like the Lothcats were in Rebels. They kind of like seem like they might have that type of a following in terms of they're kind of cool looking and whatnot. And yeah, when Brock made the Vulpix jokes, that was the most hilarious part. And just the fact that they chose that name that's so close to this Pokemon. I mean, there's the picture of the Pokemon if anybody doesn't know what they're talking about. Oh, and that's another version of it. That almost
you swiped too far to the left. Now we're seeing nudes.
That's Vulptex nudes.
Two versions of it that almost looks exactly like it.
Because in the the current Pokemon, they're like they're ice now. So it's like, wow, this is
it's
actually ripoff.
I read that the name, it's actually a Latin name.
Well, it's the Latin name.
Yeah, so I mean that's not really a coincidence then. Andrew, you love using some Porgs. Are you gonna be eating crystal foxes or Porgs tonight for Thanksgiving dinner in Canada?
Oh, I'm picking Vulpix 100%, man. I mean, crystal foxes or a puffin. That's not even a choice.
I think I'd go with the puffin. Has a less chance of it eating you.
Well, we don't even know that. The Porgs could be monsters.
Yeah, they have razor sharp teeth.
Yeah, those Vulpix don't look like they have, digestive tracts. It looks like that's all 100% pure hard crystal. He's not going to eat my face. He's going to come maybe like sniff around my feet, and then he's going to run away. That was like one of my favorite parts of the sizzle reel was the reveal of that.
They were so thing. Cool. Look majestic and shit.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm down
really
for.
just want to see like somebody just domesticate one of them, and that's his dog now. That'd be cool to have a character like that. Yeah.
All right, Brock.
I don't want to pick. I want to like all of them. I think there's a big.
No, you have to pick one.
running for
You have to
office
hate
in
the other.
2020. You can't pick a side.
Because like after reading the Luke Skywalker YA novel, they really pushed those horse things. What are they called? Long ears or something like that. Lothith.
Oh yeah.
I think the Porgs are there for fun, and I think the Vulptex are there to like be as, because like as they said, it's like they shine lights and stuff, and they go underground, and it's gonna lead our heroes to something. So, I'll go with Vulptexes just to go with the majority. I believe no one said Porgs. Did you say Porgs?
I want to, because I'm going to be obsessed with Porgs for the rest of my life.
I think there's less butt of the jokes with Vulptexes, but I'm one of the things that grabbed me about this trailer or the sizzle reel was just like, look at all these creatures. I'm like, wow. Yeah. But yeah, everything on Crate looks really cool, so I'm very interested in that. So yeah, I guess I'm more interested in that than Octo, so that'll be my decision.
All right. That is it. We have one last topic before we go. This one, Rob, I'm going to start with you. Give me one thing you want to see and one thing you do not want to see in The Last Jedi.
Boobs.
Okay, let's go with not want to see first. I don't want to see a gang of Porgs just beat up Captain Phasma. I think that character's been through enough already. Just if a Porg attacks anybody in the First Order, I'm going to be upset. But one thing I do want to see, the ultimate reveal as to who Snoke is and who Rey's parents are. I hope that they do that in this movie.
I hope you might be right. Andrew.
I want to see. I'm going to go with a good send off for Leia and a bad send off for Leia.
Ooh, nice.
Andrew is he's a writer. Josh.
Look, #ignite the green. Give it to me. Do it. That's what I need to see. You sons of bitches over there at Disney haven't shown us any of this green lightsaber. I can't believe it. You want to talk about crappy marketing? Where's the green lightsaber?
Ignite the green sounds like we're 420 friendly now.
Hey, look, it's decriminalized in Canada. I might be coming up there. That just sounds kind of cool. Look, ignite the green. Ignite the green. Ignite the green.
Ignite the green.
That's what we need. And what I don't want to see is Luke Skywalker die. I got to be honest here. I don't know how I'm going to handle it if they kill Luke Skywalker off in this movie. I might be pretty upset.
I don't think they can because he wasn't in the last one. I feel like
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, hey, here we go. We got Star Wars backing in. Here's like a dash of Luke here, a dash of Luke here, and then he's dead.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Brock, one thing you want to see, one thing you do not want to see.
I don't know what I don't want to see because I'm kind of just open to everything. But anyways, what I want to see is I'm gonna stray away from the whole destiny of the Force and all that jazz. I want to see more. I don't need to see more, but more about the rebellion and the First Order and just the state of things in the galaxy. Because not only do we now have two warring sides, but like they blew up Hosnian Prime. So it's like, what does that mean? Like, does that change how the Republic works? Where does it all go? And I just want to see more X-Wings. I just want to see X-Wing going pew 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 pew. Yeah, I want to know more about the characters that can't just like lift a mountain over the top of their head with their mind. I want to see where all that goes. But because I know we're gonna get some kind of story about. I was like, this is what the Force does. Yay! Do you like the Force? I like the Force. Let's be friends.
That's not how the Force works.
I really want to see Kylo Ren fuck stuff up, but I want to see Anakin Skywalker in some form. And when I say see, I mean I could also deal with just hearing him. But yeah, I totally want Anakin to come back. I believe that this is his saga, and it's going to start. And what I don't want to see is not Anakin.
Yeah, fair.
Does that count? I don't. You know what? But at the same time, all the way back to when we talked about expectations. If he does not appear in the movie, I will be okay with it because that is just what they decided to do, even though it was the wrong choice. So that's everything.
Ignite.
Yes, ignite the Hayden.
Ignite the Hayden.
Ignite the Hayden. All right, Josh, thanks so much. Where can everybody find you?
Oh, I'm out and about. That was the terrible Canadian accent. But yeah, I out and about. Yeah, I do this thing called the Den of Nerds. We do Star Wars videos and stuff, Justice League videos. Working on a video right now about the Justice League. Did a live stream with James yesterday where he got really negative, and I can't believe how negative he was.
I got really, really negative.
Oh, you said negative. I thought you said naked. I'm like, yikes.
Andrew, thanks for being here today. Well, Josh, also happy Thanksgiving, even though you're not celebrating it. You're celebrating it the Canadian way, which is the right way. Yeah. Which is take advantage of your Black Friday sales from up.
Oh,
yeah.
That's what's happening. Andrew, where can everybody find you at?
You can find me here at home playing board games by myself, and you can find me on Facebook at Andrew Fantasia.
You still lose those board games, too. He's
Yeah,
never won
brutal.
Monopoly against himself. Rob, where can everybody find you?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Robert E. McDonald. And also, as always, download the Stardust app, react to stuff. Last Jedi's coming out. React to the trailers, watch the movie, react to that as well. You can follow me at Rob Mack on Stardust.
I'm going to have a Stardust reaction to The Last Jedi before Rob.
Oh,
That's right, Rob. That's going to be my first one. I'm going to do it in the theater during the last scene when Snoke is going to get killed.
Don't be
by
that
Luke.
guy.
Yeah. It's good. I'm going to
coming
selfie
up.
it
Stardust
too,
the last
so you can see the end of the movie. In there.
and you know Rob's in the background doing his own
Yeah.
Stardust.
Brock, where can
Right,
everybody find
right.
you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at BFSmink. And that's it, pretty much.
All right, you can find me everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, at Petzafina. That's PEZZFINA or PEZZFINA for those celebrating up north, watching up north. And you could also, PlayStation 2 is Petzafina as well, where you can kick my butt at Battlefront DOS. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. For all of you celebrating, have a happy Thanksgiving, and may the force of others be with you.
Hashtag Ignite the Green.
Always.
Ignite the green.
Oh, what the?
Ignite the Hayden.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.